I always see some very interesting discussions out there for ban list, and this is probably going to be a discussion on one of the most realistic ban lists that I've seen out there, and just in terms of people trying to fix the game among their own personal qualms. I always make the joke, it's like, well, that's why you're not in R&D, because your personal biases and things like that sometimes can't let people make rational decisions, and something will end up being hit. But this is probably one of the most interesting lists I've seen out there, so let's dig on into this discussion, shall we? Alright, let's dig on into this ban list. Of course, the big request that everybody has per every ban list is the removal of Firewall Dragon from the game. And there's a lot more going on besides Firewall needing to be banned. This seems to be the typical request that every duelist is making at this stage. And I perfectly understand people want a fair and balanced game, and that's perfectly fine. So kicking a Firewall out is a very, very good start. Now, following this ban, also banning Dark Refere and Armageddon Knight. Now, both of these cards have been culprits together for probably a chunk of this format. The fact that these two cards go hand in hand with pure degeneracy on loading things. Now, granted, Firewall Dragon has been the main problem maker for these, but the fact that you're able to send things like Malicious to the graveyard, and the fact that the Warrior engine has once again become too powerful. The thing that originally tried to balance the Warrior engine in Yugioh was the fact that, oh no, we took Rhoda back away. The last time we had Rhoda at 3, these cards were a very, very big shit show. And I'm actually really glad to see that at least other people are understanding that the Warrior engine itself is getting a little bit too far out of hand just for these dumping aspects. Too many malicious issues. And then in addition to this, they also went ahead and banned Elemental Hero Vion. Now, also once again, Warrior engine getting out of hand. You have more means to dumping Malicious in the graveyard. This one hurts heroes a little bit. I mean, I understand, like, everybody just got Stratos back. They're extremely happy. Everything's going well. But heroes are also abusing Stratos. Did you also know what else heroes are? They are warriors. And once again, you have to look at the way that the game is progressively going now. Hero or warrior cards are too much of a problem. In order to balance Yu-Gi-Oh, we have to take care of these things. So seeing this person end up hitting a Vion to wrap up their four bans, actually at the moment, I understand is perfectly fine. I don't see any real issues with it. So we're going to just touch with that. So those are the 4 bans so far that they have touched. Next up, limited to 1, is Maxie. Now, I've talked about Maxie before. I think that moving Maxie to any more than 1, or to any more than 0, causes people to shift their mentality in the way that they think in the format. And I don't think that that is a very good call in the current game. Shifting these cards, forcing players to change the way that they look at the game fundamentally is very incorrect, and it causes issues when you have players having to adjust their decks to play around certain situations. And that's why we have Maxie currently out of the game, because it causes these bullshit degenerate plays. Your opponent opens up the one of Maxie and you're playing Goki. This water is a high representation of what ends up happening to these players. They end up getting just massively frustrated. Now, this person also wants Heavy Storm and Feather Duster back. Now, realistically, I don't think it is fair to bring back Feather Duster and Heavy Storm into the same format. Feather Duster is much like Maxie. You force players to play around a certain style of mentality, and it ends up causing issues for the overall metagame. And when you cause players, once again, to have to play a certain way, you run into these issues, and the metagame cannot progress itself. I think it's a little bit irrational to have these 2 cards come back into the game. I don't want to see Heavy come back because I think it's very unfair. The fact that it kills both players' fields, and you can kind of take advantage of that. I think the way that the mentality is going now, with these particular cards, when you look at them, you're like, oh no, spell and trap destruction. But if you can take advantage of your own stuff, well, that's rewarding, right? So those are the cards limited to 1. To 2, Malicious. Now, I've talked about in previous videos that Malicious is a major problem at the moment. If you leave Malicious at 3, you're not doing the game any real favors. Alright, you need to push that card to 2 ASAP, and you actually answer some of the problems that the game is having. Now, I understand that you remove the Armageddon Knight and the Dark Refere from the game, you effectively fix some of the things that are going on in the game. But if you also put Malicious to 2, that's one less Assault Day that your opponent's going to be able to drop on you and try to climb up link ladders. And that's what we want to try to limit in this current game, is fixing the bullshit that comes with Malicious. So I definitely agree that limiting Malicious to 2 is a very good step in the right direction. Now, he also put Dark Armed Dragon 2, and I've been thinking about this. Is Dad really even a problem at more than 1? Let's be real here. How often do you see people with 3 darks in their graveyard? You don't see it a lot. And the fact that, yes, you can draw it, speeding up the overall process of Yu-Gi-Oh! To make sure that you can establish your boss monster. And that's fine, right? But I think for the most part, pushing Dark Armed Dragon to 2 does not hurt the game. I actually think it might promote a little bit more diversity out of the game. So I'm fine with Dark Armed Dragon going to 2, just because it doesn't seem like that much of an issue in the current game. It might cause problems later on down the line, honestly, but I mean, Dark Armed Dragon at 3. Dark Armed's been at 2 or 1 for the longest time. Why is it not doing anything? Oh wait, it's limited to 1. Next up on this list, we have Dark Hole going to 2. This was sort of something that we noticed. Board wipes within large numbers were absolutely fine in previous formats. When we had things like Double Dark Hole Regeki, players were going more towards these board wipe-esque formats. And that wasn't a bad thing at all, no. But it became degenerate when you were seeing these cards in higher representations, and your opponent just knows that they can psychically draw it, board wipe your board, and you go into a really shitty situation because A, your opponent has wiped your board, 2, they've cleared everything that you needed to do. Now, if you're in an extra lock board and things like that, you shouldn't be losing, but I mean, you've already got 1 Kaiju Slumber, 1 Dark Hole, 1 Regeki in the current format. I think it's absolutely fine to allow 1 more Dark Hole to come into the equation, just to kind of balance things out, essentially. I don't see any issue with it. Now, this person also has Called by the Grave moving back to 3. And I don't really feel this one too much. There was a reason why it was limited in the first place. Called by the Grave is very degenerate. At least by limiting it, it's effectively 1 less hand trap that your opponent will have against you, or be able to stop you with, depending on the situation that you kind of find yourself in. So one of the more interesting things with limiting Called by the Grave, or unlimiting it, you have this situation that, yes, your opponent can draw more hand traps to deal with, but on the contrary, it's less that your opponent will have to deal with stopping you in the long run. So bringing it back to 3 just effectively fixes the overall numbers and things like that that your opponent's going to have to deal with. And then last but not least on this list was Book of Moon going back to 3. And we've seen a lot of players in the TCG wanting to push Book back to 3. I don't think it's going to go straight to 2, but honestly, having Book back at 3 once again answers a lot of the situations that players have been needing to fix in this game. Responsibility, chainability, things like that. Like, the cards are... Having Book back at 3 would be fantastic for a lot of the player base, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's one of the most requested things that I think we've seen in the current format, is just bringing back Book to a higher representative number that players can actually have fun with and engage in the game. It's been one of the most requested things, so we'll have to wait and see. So that's all I have for this list. Very interesting choices coming out of this duelist. I would very well like to see how a list under these restrictions ends up doing. But what do you guys think? Do you think that this is one of the best options that you've seen? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. And well, guys, I'm out. Peace. The ride never, well, truly ends. Thank you, patrons. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd be wearing in these videos. I might be a truffle shuffle incident all over again. Guys, please also check out Vanquil40 for some awesome Vanguard content. Some other interesting stuff you might find up here on the left or in the description as well. Thanks for watching.